your camera's on, feel free to do that, but we are recording the session. So firstly, I want to introduce our guest speaker, Amy. So Amy is a visiting scholar at the Cooperative Cyber Defense Centre of Excellence, a cybersecurity fellow at the Belfer Centre of Science and International Affairs, Harvard Kennedy School, and an information security doctoral candidate at the Royal Holloway University of London. She has previously worked in strategic cyber intelligence, cyber wargaming design, and human-centered security research. And she currently holds a CISSP and CRTIA certification, if I've got that correct. Yes. And then we also have the founder of CIDIA, Steph. If there's anything that you want to say, just to introduce yourselves, guys.
Thank you for inviting me. Really happy to be here. Yeah, I'll wait for my turn in the presentation, I reckon. So Steph, over to you as well.
Yeah, thank you for the warm introduction, Antonia. I'm just going to share my screen because I'm conscious of time. If everyone can see my screen, please let me know. Okay, great. Hello, everyone, and welcome to today's event. So it's Cybersecurity Certifications 101. And I'm just going to talk about the beginner certifications, especially for those who are new into the cybersecurity industry. You want to transition or enter the field, but you don't know where to start. This event hopefully should point you into the right direction. So I just wanted to talk about 4 different beginner certifications I'm going to be talking about today. The first one is the CISSP, which is the Certified Information Security Management Principles certification, and that's from BCS. I'm also going to talk about the CompTIA Security Plus, the CompTIA Network Plus, and Cisco CCNA. And for those who are new to the industry, what I would say for cybersecurity analysts, it typically falls between 25,000 to 35,000 for entry-level roles. When you do become more experienced within this industry, you can earn from 35 to 60,000. And if you're in a higher level leadership or a managerial role, you're looking at £70,000 and above. So this is definitely an industry where you can really cultivate a career, help your family, and earn a decent amount of income. So I definitely would encourage anyone who's thinking of transitioning or entering cybersecurity to do so, because the opportunities are endless. So moving on to the first certification, and that's the CISSP. So the CISSP is a foundation level qualification that's provided by BCS. For those who don't know what BCS is, they are the British Computer Society, and they're a chartered institute for IT in the UK. And the course is normally a 2-hour multi-choice examination. However, please note that in September of last year, the BCS did update the CISSP syllabus. And the reason why this is important is because when I talk about the cost and ways you can actually get training, it's important for you to know the years that you should be looking for. So for skills as to, what skills would you gain with this particular certification, it's information security management. What's really good about the certification is that it's, there is no entry level. You can come not having any clue about information security or cybersecurity, but it is geared towards more of the non-technical side of cybersecurity. So the non-technical side around governance, controls, business continuity, operational resilience, policy writing, those aspects of cybersecurity, if you are interested. And the non-technical side, I would definitely recommend the certification. However, the cons, I will say, has to do with the price. So there's 2 ways in which you can get certified. The first way is by buying the book. So there's if you go to the BCS and go to this particular certification, there's a recommended book on certified information professional or principles. That book on Amazon costs about £31. You can use that book to self-study and then take the exam. It's a lot harder, and I would say you would need motivation to do that, but it allows you to take in the information, test yourself. They do have exam practice questions online you can also use, and the exam costs £192. So if you're thinking of a cost-effective way of taking the certification, I would recommend getting the book, and then the exam costs as well. However, if you want to actually get a trainer to teach you these skills and to help you get certified for this particular pathway, then you're looking between £1,000 to £3,000 in the UK by training providers. And that would include the access to a virtual version of the book, presentation slides of the material, as well as the exam cost as well. It is a easier and faster way, but it is more expensive. So those are the pros and cons, is what I would say with this particular certification. Now, the second certification that I'm going to talk about is the Cybersecurity Plus. So with the Cybersecurity Plus, it's a certification that is globally recognized, as in you can use the certification in the US, other places in Europe, other places in Africa, and other places in Asia as well. It's a globally recognized certification. In comparison to the last certification I talked about, the CISSP is more, if you're hoping to work in the UK, then I would suggest that because it's more focused to the UK. But if you're hoping to have more of an international experience, I would definitely recommend the Cybersecurity Plus. Now, that certification provides hands-on practical skills. It includes a lot of performance-based questions, allows you to really think about scenarios and what you would do in those scenarios. It is designed for any IT professional in the early stages of their career. And similar to the last certification, there is not a lot of entry requirements apart from you having an interest in this field or you having to do some previous research on cybersecurity in general, but it's very, very beginner friendly. If you have no knowledge of cybersecurity, you can definitely take the certification. Skills that you can gain with this particular certification is threat management, cryptography, identity management, which is good for if you're thinking of working in fintech, security risk identification and mitigation, as well as implementing a security infrastructure. What I would say is really good about the Cybersecurity Plus and the CISSP is that they both think about the three different areas of cybersecurity. So it thinks about the technical controls and technical security. It thinks about administrative security, and it also thinks about physical security. So if you're going, for example, pre-COVID, when we actually did have an office to go to, if some certain places would have barriers where you need a staff card to actually enter the building, that's a case of, physical security, because that barrier is ensuring that the right people have access to the building. So these two certifications are very, very good for you to have a more holistic view of cybersecurity. But I would say the Cybersecurity Plus is a little bit more technical than the CISSP. Now, the cost of this certification in the UK is £219. Just for the exam, though. I'm going to talk more about the training cost in the next slide. But you have 90 minutes to complete the questions, and you can get the exam in English, Japanese, Portuguese, as well as simplified Chinese. However, the CISSP, it's more of a standalone. You do that, you have it for life. The Cybersecurity Plus, you have to renew every 3 years. So that's something to think about long term. The first one, I would say, is more of an investment because you don't have to renew it as more often as the Cybersecurity Plus. However, the Cybersecurity Plus is more globally recognized. Now, when actually thinking about training, the good thing is the training, the exam voucher, you can get all of them from Cybersecurity Plus, from the CompTIA franchise. So as you can see, these are different bundles that they have. £219 is just for the exam. The £369 is for an exam and retake, but also the ebook on this particular course. If you do want to get practice the exams, they give you the Cert Master Practice Security, and that's 469. However, if you want to use the labs to like practice what you're learning as well, that's £649, which is quite pricey. But there is another way of actually getting certified for a lot cheaper. So I know Udemy does courses on CompTIA Security Plus, which are really good. It's a great way for you to test it out. And if you buy those bundles, I think if you join Udemy, it's about $15.99. You can use that Udemy course and then buy the voucher, which is less than £250. And for that, you can actually get certified that way. In regards to how long it takes to get certified, it really depends on you. Now, for the CISMP that I first talked about, if you're using just the book, it's going to take a bit longer. I know people have said it takes them about a month or 2 months to get certified just using the book. If you do get a training provider with the CISMP, you're looking at 5 days training, so a week to get certified. For the CompTIA Security Plus, I've heard it takes about 3 weeks on average to get certified with the online training. So now I'm going to move on to CompTIA Network. So CompTIA Network, it's quite interesting. So this is a little bit more technical than the CompTIA Security Plus. There are 2 different types of network certification. The first one is the CompTIA Network Plus, and then the other one is the Cisco CCNA. What I will say is with the CompTIA Network certification, you know, it gives you the essential knowledge and skills needed to develop a career in IT infrastructure. So you're looking at roles with network engineering around those fields. Unlike the Cisco, it's not vendor specific. So you're able to understand networking with different vendor providers and not just Cisco. The skills that you're going to gain with this particular certification is that you'll be able to design and implement, you know, functional networks. You'll be able to configure, manage, and maintain network devices. You'll be able to understand network traffic and create resilient networks. And you'll also be able to implement network security standards and control, as well as troubleshooting network problems as well. If you do get this certification, I would advise that the type of roles that you apply is for those kind of service desk, helping people in companies with people who have issues with their computers. That's a great way of utilizing this certification and a great way to also enter the industry as well. It is around £201, so it is cheaper than the Security Plus, and it can be taken online at any of the Pearson VUE testing centers around the world. Similar to the Security Plus, you will have to renew the certification every 3 years. Now, similar to the Security Plus, everything is on CompTIA platform. So exam voucher 201 if you want to retake, and the ebook is 299. If you want more of like the practice exams, you're looking at 399. And if you want labs to actually practice what you're learning, you're looking at 599 for the price. But like I said, you can also get a course on Udemy and take that course and then pay for the voucher. But I always recommend actually the 299 deal. So the basic bundle, because it's always good to have a retake because it's cheaper. So if you fail the first time, at least you gather that information by taking the test the first time, that, you know, you'll be able to actually improve for the next exam. Also, the ebook as well is a very invaluable tool, as well as having the Udemy. I just wanted to put that there as well. Now, finally, is the last certification I'm going to talk about is Cisco Certified Network Associate. So anyone who's interested in like network security would know that a lot of people talk about CCNA as a great certification to have. Now, the difference between this and the previous one is that this certification is Cisco specific, so it's vendor specific. However, I would say that the Cisco does have a bigger community in regards to having groups that you can join, study groups you can join, having networks, people you can ask questions and stuff like that. There's definitely more community for Cisco than the CompTIA for this particular certification. However, I would say, you know, the skills you can get is recognizing threats and vulnerability within a Cisco network. You're able to mitigate security threats and develop an effective security infrastructure. What I will say are the requisites for this particular certification is to have at least 6 months experience. And this would be in routing, switching, knowledge of like IP addressing, internet usage skills, PC operating systems and navigation skills, and having some level of computer literacy as well. And I will say with this one, the certifications are taken on their platform. So everything, you'll find it on the Cisco website. Now, when I talk about what kind of trusted training centers are out there, I'll definitely recommend, if you're looking at vendor specific, Cisco and CompTIA platform. However, there are actually other IT security training providers online that are very effective as well. I'd recommend Cybery, which also offers a lot of free courses, the EC Council, VTE, the Global Information Assurance Certification, InfoSec Institute, the ISC2, MIS Training Institute, Offensive Security, the SANS Institute. And I really love the SANS Institute as well, because if you're trying to get your commercial awareness knowledge about what's going on in cybersecurity, they do a lot of webcasts and events that are pre-recorded that you can listen to from experts in the industry. I'll also recommend Secure Ninja and Security University. And yeah, so for those who do want to know more about us, definitely check out our website. Thank you. And I'll now pass it on to Amy.
Perfect, thank you. I'll just get my screens up as well. One moment. Okay. Hopefully you can now all see a full-size PowerPoint that says CISSP 101, is that right?
Yeah, you can see it.
Great, okay. Thank you, Steph, that was brilliant and gave a much better overview of all the entry-level certificates than I could have. I'll introduce really briefly. Antonio mentioned that I did have CRTIA, and that's an entry level for cyber threat intelligence. It's CREST registered threat intelligence analyst course, offered by CREST, UK specific. I can answer questions about that later if you would like, but what I'm going to do now is go through CISSP and give an introduction to qualification, which, as Antonia and Steph mentioned, is not entry level. But if you do, if you are a few years into your journey in a career in cybersecurity, or you think you will be, then it's very useful to know about, because it will likely be a decision that you take roughly when you approach the 5-year mark of your time in industry. So without further ado, what I'll talk about now in this kind of 10-15 minutes I have, I'll introduce what CISSP is, and I'll also talk about the things that you want to think about before you actually embark on it. It's quite a significant time commitment. It can be quite a significant cost as well. And not everyone is eligible to actually use the certificate once they have it. You need a certain amount of experience across certain areas of cybersecurity. I'll also spend then the majority of my time talking about, if you've decided you want to do this, take this qualification, what's the best way to do it? Because CISSP is known as being a certificate that is 1 inch deep and a mile wide. It is incredibly broad. It can be overwhelming. So let's jump in. So what is CISSP? We hear that acronym being thrown around quite a lot. You'll see it on job adverts for associate, basically, yeah, above analyst, it should be an upwards up to managerial. Certified Information System Security Professional certification. And you'll see people use CISSP in and around their names on LinkedIn and things like that if they have it. CISSP is an international certificate, so you'll see it across roles. Yeah, everywhere, especially dominant in the US, UK, but really everywhere you can think of. It is for as a broad cybersecurity certification, it is one of the most established. It has a good reputation, hence it usually is being listed, maybe unfairly in some situations, as a benchmark on job roles. If you can, once you have the experience, take this exam and pass it, it kind of shows that you know the fundamental concepts of different areas of cybersecurity in this all-rounder fashion. So it preps you for certain information security management roles. And if you look a bit more about it, you'll see that it's kind of expected from chief information security officers or CISOs once you get to that certain level. It does also reflect into salaries as well. So compared to people who don't have CISSP with the same experience levels, the Global Information Security Report shows that they have a 25% higher salary in average. So in the UK, CW Job says that CISSP holder average roles or job roles advertising for people with CISSP offering about £62,500. And that broadly carries, that trend carries across the world. It is more of a leadership focused exam, and it is run by, kind of coordinated by ISC2, which Steph mentioned a little bit earlier. They also do some of the qualifications that she covered. It is not cheap. To register for the exam is almost £600. And then beyond that, which I'll go into shortly, you could spend a lot more preparing for the exam if you wanted to do a boot camp, if you wanted to get extra support. I'm going to talk about particularly cheaper ways of doing it. So I took CISSP last year. I was able to get funding towards the exam and some training as a result of getting made redundant from a role. So I had some money to apply for there. And maybe that's what I'd say first off as we go, is that if you have, by the time you're looking to do a certificate like CISSP, I would strongly recommend urging your employer to help fund you and support you along that journey, and really pitch it to them as investing in yourself and training, because otherwise it does get expensive. And in terms of, if you do have this if you are in a position, should you actually take the exam? First of all, are you eligible? I mentioned it is not an entry-level certificate. You should have to be a CISSP member, someone who has the exam and can put it by their name. You should have 5 years paid cumulative experience, so in industry. If you've done a 4-year degree, like an integrated master's, that counts as 1 year. So you will be at least some way into your career before you're able to do CISSP. You can take the exam without that experience, and you would be a CISSP associate, which highlights that you've done the exam, you've learned all the material, but you don't have that experience yet, and you get given a certain amount of time to do that. But my personal view on this one is you may as well wait. It is the CISSP title itself that carries the weight. So we can talk about that a little bit later. And then if you do have the experience, think about it again in terms of the type of roles you want to go in. I mentioned that CISSP is more of a leadership and management certificate. It's more broad. It's not incredibly technical. There's some technical content, but it's not like the kind of certificate you would really want if you just want to be a penetration tester or you just want to be a malware analyst. I've listed on the left of this slide some of the roles that ISC2, the organization that coordinates, designs the exams and course and syllabus, say these are the kind of roles you could go into with the certificate or you might benefit from. And it's things like Director of Security, CISO, as I mentioned, managers, auditors, consultants, this kind of managerial level. I've listed as well this picture on the right showing how different exams can be understood. So you have CISSP as this almost management category under the advanced level, but you have these other ones, CAS Plus on the top, which is probably if you're more technical. So if you've decided that actually, okay, you are eligible and you do want to go in this direction where you want to show this broad breadth of knowledge, you want to do the exam, let's talk about what's in it. I can see the chat buzzing by the moment of the way, but I'll take questions at the end just so I know we get through all the material. So the CISSP exam has 8 domains of knowledge, and this is what they are. And the weight on the side is how many questions within the exam will actually correspond to those topics. So when you get a course book for CISSP, chapter 1 will be security and risk management, and it will go through. So you can see there's a mix in this exam between some more holistic aspects. Security and risk management covers things like policy and regulation as well. And a different GDPR would be an aspect, how different regulations relate to different information security requirements, like protecting banking data if you're a bank, or healthcare data if you're that kind of institution. Going through some different aspects, security architecture and engineering, security operations contain more technical content. If you're someone like me who comes from a less technical background, this means a lot of memorizing and a lot of learning new material. For me, I had to learn different types of fundamentals relating to network security. I had to learn about cables and, you know, the TCP/IP protocols, etc., etc. I had colleagues that came from a more technical route. Actually, the challenge for them was part of security assessment and testing, or identity and access management, because that was more process-based or policy-based. So when you take the CISSP exam, you have to do well in all of the domains. So you can't just focus on topics that you think you can get 100% right on. I have a blog which I've linked at the end of this PowerPoint, and I can share with Sadir to share with you on the strategy I would take when it comes to these. I personally started with all the domains I thought I would know the most about, and finished with the ones I found the most challenging. So for me, definitely network security, so that I could spend more time on them. Now, we've seen the domains, and we've seen that CISSP is a very well-known qualification, and accordingly, there are many, many, many resources available for those who prepare for the exam. I'll start by saying, again, there are different options in the way that Steph mentioned. You can self-teach, you can enroll on a training course or a platform login where you have that support, but you can teach yourself at your own pace. You can do a boot camp and do a 5-day course in a classroom or online that's live with an instructor. And all of those have different costs attached. So I personally didn't do a boot camp. They can range, generally, they're above £5,000. So definitely not something I would ever advise unless you had a company, an employer that was willing to put that funding with you for you to go follow that. What I would recommend is the course books themselves. The official study guide for the exam and the practice tests, because I'll go into this in a slide or two, but knowing the nature of the exam and how you're expected to approach the exam questions is almost as important as the actual content itself. And if you do want some extra support, but you don't have hundreds and hundreds of pounds to spare for self-guided, I think from memory, the ISC to do a self-guided, self-paced online teaching where you pay, then you get access to log in with something like 200 hours of videos where they talk through the content. But I think that was about £700. There are resources which are free or very cheap. There are podcasts. YouTube was incredibly useful for me. Just typing in exactly what I wanted to look at, or CISSP specific videos. There are also Thor Teaches is an example of someone who started a Facebook group just for people to come and study CISSP together. They then have their own website and they offer a monthly subscription. I think it's something like 20 or 30 pounds, which is much more appealing than dropping 5,000 to 7,000 on a boot camp if you are paying yourself. So on this slide, and generally along a few of my slides, I've put links at the bottom on the left. which will go into more detail about the different kinds of resources you might want to look at. I will caveat that as of the beginning of this month, the syllabus has changed. Not hugely, but enough that I would recommend that when you get a study guide or practice test, you make sure you're not getting an outdated edition. And the nature of the exam itself. So like some of the exams that Steph covered, you do this in a Pearson VUE Centre. So the same centres where you do your driving theory test. It is a multiple choice exam. You sit at the computer and you have up to 3 hours. It is an adaptive test. So there will be between 100 to 150 questions. And you may, depending on how you're doing, pass at the 100 mark, or it will keep spitting you questions until it works out if you've definitely met the threshold to pass, or you definitely haven't met the threshold to fail. So don't panic if you take it and you're going along. I didn't pass at 100. I think I was between 110, 120. So it gives you that almost flexibility. It just checks when you get to a certain point. And the point for passing is 70% or 700 out of 1,000, I think. But that does have to be split across the domains that we saw before. And in terms of that approach that I mentioned, you might originally think, well, multiple choice, it can't be that hard. But if you look at some of these sample questions, question 1 here, which of the following is the most important security consideration? This might be subjective to some. All of these answers could be right, but one is more right for the purpose of this exam than others. And that's where the key aspect of approaching the exam is you have to put yourself in the mind of an information security manager, someone who's managing cyber risk and the management side of this. Don't pretend that you're a technical systems administrator or a colleague. So you have to take this holistic approach to questions. There's a really good YouTube video, which I've linked here, by Kelly Handahan, and she explains the kind of approach you need to take. She gives examples. It's a short video. But before you do an exam, I definitely would, before you do CISSP, sorry, I would recommend just reading up and trying to get into that headspace so that when you see questions like number 1 here, it doesn't throw you. Now, after the exam, there are more fees. And there is a process. You don't automatically get listed because they have to verify that you have the experience that you're eligible for. Now, you can do this one of 2 ways. You can have someone who is already a CISSP member endorse you, basically give a reference and say, yes, you do have 5 years experience and you have worked in these areas. Or you can submit your CV and actually it kind of goes through this audit process. So the majority of people, I think, go through the endorsement process. It is a lot simpler. So you would ideally want to know someone that has CISSP at that point so they can vouch for you. Once you have this endorsement process, you have to pay a fee to ISC2, your membership fee. And this is an annual fee. Quite frustrating. If you're an associate, so you actually don't have that experience yet, you still have an annual fee. It's a bit less, it's $50. And you have 6 years to actually get to that 5 years experience and become a full member. Then you'll pay the full membership fee of $125. And your strategy to this one, once you have the exam, it will really depend on you. Some people like to keep up an active membership, so they pay this fee every year. For other people, they say that they have it, and they say when they took the exam, but they don't keep up the active membership fee. And I think maybe my very personal opinion on this is it will depend on what you want at that point from your career. If you're looking for a new job and, people say that you might want to have an active CISSP membership for that job, just for when you're applying. But I generally think for a lot of cases, it's fine maybe to let it lapse. You'll want to have a look at the time you take this exam about job roles and see if they specify anything about whether it's CISSP or active CISSP, and do your own cost benefit analysis there as to whether you just want to say that you have it, but actually you passed 3 years ago, or if you want to stay this member. And you do get certain benefits from being an ISC² member too, that you get special emails and events and things like this. You become part of the CISSP community. So there are a few resources there based on that. Well, that is the end of my slideshow. So I'll stop there and I'll take off slides, and happy to open up for questions for Stephanie, anyone.
Thank you, Amy. Really, really good presentation. I really enjoyed that. Just one quick point around the CISSP. Apologies if I missed it on the slides, but I believe with CISSP, when you have it, you have to maintain it. So you have to gain a certain number of points per year. I think they're CPE points.
Yes, I think that stands for continuing professional education. Yeah. So it means going to lectures or doing certain training as well. So again, sometimes that gets monetized as well, and some of those will be paid. I'm not sure, but I can check about free routes to that as well. Again, if you're in a situation where you're employed somewhere, I would fully expect the employer to be paying for all of that.
Yeah, so I think you have like a renewal fee, isn't it? But your employer can.
Annual maintenance fee.
Yeah, which they can pay for. But I think it's on the likes of attending different webinars and going to various security events that can then contribute to your CPE points, which you can use to then maintain your certification, which is really handy. I don't know how people have gone about maintaining their CPE points throughout COVID. I guess you'd have to
virtual, online events, online webinars, exactly like you said.
Yeah, thank you so much. I don't know if we had any questions from the audience. I know we had a few in the chat. Please feel free to unmute yourself, turn your camera on if you want to ask any questions.
Hi. Sorry, hi. Question. So do you think it's better to embark on taking the CISSP once you're actually in the industry? So just for some background, I'm trying to transition in from financial crime prevention. So I have a master's in security management, but which would obviously give me the 1 year to undertake the CISSP. But I don't know whether it would just be better to do the CISSP now and then embark on the journey of finding a new role within that role, or whether to wait.
For CISSP specifically, I would wait, because you'll need to show more to be eligible. You need to have 5 years in the space, but you also need to have experience in at least 2 of the domains. So through the think crime role, you might have 1, but you'd want to have maybe another security role for a while. But then you'll definitely want to look at the ones that Steph mentioned. They're the ones you could do now.
Okay, perfect. Thank you very much.
Okay, a few questions in the chat.
There are a few in the chat. Steph, I don't know which ones you want to take, / which ones I should take.
I think I'm happy to answer, and then you give your perspective as well, so we can answer them together. I think the first question, will the slides be shared? I think Antonio have answered that. We'll be recording this, so this will be on our YouTube channel. In regards to the bundles, the exam voucher itself is just you taking the exam. So when you're paying for that, you're only paying for the cost of the exam. However, if you're having the bundle includes the retake, it includes the ebook for CompTIA, and it also includes the online e-learning program as well, and online labs that you can take. So that's the difference between the bundle and the exam. If, like I said, if you want to go through the Udemy route or maybe Cyber or all those other training, then it will just be the exam voucher in that. But I always recommend at least taking the retake version as well, because if you don't pass the first time, you'd be saving money by spending another 200 and something pounds. on that.
We had another question from Agnes. What is the highest paid security role?
It depends. It depends where you want to go. And also, I think Steph will also be able to articulate this really well, I think, but if you find a role or a thing that you're good at and you're talented at in security, you will do your research, but you should be okay. We can't say what the highest paid security role is, because by the time we all get there in our careers, those will be completely different roles. Cybersecurity has changed so much in the last 5 years. But if you had a real mind for detail and analysis, maybe you'd want to go into malware. If you are like me, more of a generalist, then I'll probably end up going up a management route and maybe aiming for something like Chief Information Security Officer. But definitely like some general research on just different types of roles in information security should be really helpful in checking that. But if you have time in your career and you're flexible, you'll also be able to work it out as you go. I hope that helps a little bit, Ignis, with that first question. And does CISSP help in regular roles? Once you have the experience, yes, it's a general, broad qualification. It helps you understand fundamentals. And with the CPE credit, you actually have to go to specific things. So your actual day job wouldn't count towards that. So hopefully I've answered that bundle of questions from Ignis. Steph, did you want to add anything to those?
No, I think you've answered it perfectly. It really depends on your passion. CISO is supposed to be the highest paid role, but penetration testers also earn a lot of money, and it depends on the seniority you are in your company. Like if you're a chief privacy officer, you can earn a whole lot more than a CISO. So it really depends on the domain you're looking to specialize in, and what leadership looks like within that specific domain.
And same as anything else, like it will also depend on your sector, where in the world you're working, all these other things. If you manage to work your way up through in a security role in financial services, you're probably going to get paid more in those roles than if you're working in a charity. A lot of the normal stuff applies. Maybe we could both actually answer Ira's question on advice for career changes. I personally chose to go in and actually leave industry and go do a PhD, but that's not necessarily what I advise to people just generally looking to go into security. That's a very long way of doing it, and I actually just missed academia. So that's my personal choice. I didn't need to, because there are so many resources for you to actually just proactively go to free websites even. You don't have to immediately enroll on the qualifications we've mentioned, but going on Coursera, FutureLearn, Udemy, and starting to look at what information security is, different concepts, test what you're interested in. When you're in information security and cybersecurity, you hear a lot about this talent gap and this pipeline problem, and people saying that they're looking for entry-level analysts. It doesn't mean they're going to take you if you have no experience whatsoever, but if you can at least demonstrate and be informed on what main things are through kind of self-teaching and going and reading things, and have things to take into the interview, and just passion and energy, I would find that nice as an interviewer.
Yeah.
So yeah, be proactive is my advice, and look for cost-effective courses. And if you do have the resources and time to actually pick a certificate, then do that too. Steph, I don't know if you're an Agile perspective.
Yeah, I think for me, I'll definitely say I transitioned. Like I studied economics, and it was completely different to information security. And how I was even able to kind of get into my field, which was cybercrime, was through my experience doing a risk register and GDPR coming, and organizations not having enough resources. So anyone closest to it kind of got trained at that time. What I will say is for career changes is that think about the different domains. I think even looking at the CISSP, it has 8 domains that they look at. So that could be a great starting point to look at each of those domains and which one speaks to you. So if you have experience in governance, then the governance side of cybersecurity on the GRC might be good for you. If you're interested in like disaster recovery and business continuity, that can also speak to you. So looking at the different domains, looking at your skills. The certifications that I recommended, like CompTIA, Security Plus, and the CISSP are very good for especially non-technical people to understand and have a holistic view of cybersecurity, because like I said, it looks at administration, physical and technical controls. What I will say actually is, if although and cost-effective way is by doing Udemy, looking at the CompTIA Security Plus course on Udemy, which is about $15.99. Doing that course by yourself without even paying for any exam, and thinking about which aspects of that course did I really like, or can I imagine myself working in, and then looking for jobs within that specific domain, and then start, working your skills towards that. But I'll definitely recommend those specific certifications as an entry route into the sector, and as well as experience. If you lack experience, I know a lot of us have external social networks like church or mosque or friendship groups or friends who have started businesses. Test out your skills with those friends, those family friends, those social networks in our religious organizations, if you are, and test out those skills there, because you're gaining experience and you're building your portfolio. So when you are going for job interviews within that specific field that you're looking at, you're able to have references. What I would even say with personal branding as well, get those friends and family to also give you LinkedIn recommendations as well, so that it builds your personal branding. And one thing I liked that Amy said is passion. A lot of employees are looking for that passion. So think about whether writing a blog about your experience, even documenting you actually transitioning into the industry, you're showing that excitement, that enthusiasm for the sector. So that's what I would advise you, Ira, in regards to transitioning into the industry.
And that brand aspect as well, even if you don't have people that you know in real life or through your immediate networks, honestly, I would recommend just get on Twitter or something like that and start following people who have jobs that you would like, especially if they're in the UK, but it could be anywhere. Follow CISSP, follow different initiatives that are working on bringing new people into cybersecurity, follow things like the National Cybersecurity Centre. You may, through Twitter, I've certainly become aware of a lot of opportunities through Twitter, and sometimes often things like opportunities to get vouchers for certain certificates or something like that. So I would really recommend that if you don't already have it.
Yeah.
It can also help keep you in the loop on things as well. When people, when leading information security kind of experts put their views out on certain things, you get to kind of see that on top of the news. So.
Yeah, I would second that. I think I once got that advice that if you do want to, break into an industry, find a role model, and someone who has the desired career choice for yourself, and then just kind of imitate their roadmap, see how they got there, see what roles they previously did as a stepping stone into that career, and then potentially reaching out as some sort of contact, maybe having them as a mentor, and just really building your network that way.
Yeah. And when it comes to, I'm probably not helping taking us on a tangent right now, but exactly as Antonio said, like, people like talking about themselves, and people do generally like helping other people too. If you have specific questions for someone, you say, look, I know you have this role, I'd love to talk to you about how you got there, because I saw you had this experience before. They'll probably give you some of their time, even if it's an email or a short call. You have to be careful. You can't just email 50 people and say, I want your job, how did you do it? Because people can smell that a mile off. But if you are engaged and you have, 2 or 3 clear questions that you can send to someone on LinkedIn, on Twitter or something, and just say, I think what you've done is really great. I'm new, or I'd like to be there. Could I do something similar? more often than not, you should get something useful out of it.
Right, let's see. We've got a big question here from Abby. Let me try my best to read the entire question. But what advice would you give to someone who doesn't have any experience or qualifications in the industry? I work in events at the moment, and I've been taking some free courses as I want to transition into cybersecurity or software engineering. I have mainly looked at software engineering mainly because of the opportunities available to women of color at the moment, you know, scholarships, free boot camps.
Yeah, Steph, do you want to start and I'll follow you? I don't mind.
No, I was just saying that I've already answered this question before about like the certifications and building your portfolio. And just thinking about like your event experience, you do a lot of cost and benefit analysis, you do a lot of risk registry, you know, you think about the security of that space, what's the, you know, ensuring that the right people have access to the events building, looking at the names. For those who are very interested, it's always good to look at the CIA triad, which is like the holy trinity in cybersecurity. You know, is it confidential, integrity, and I believe availability. So looking at those three things, you can always try and think about the context of where you're working, so that when you are having an interview, you can say, yes, you know, although I may not have a direct experience in my role, I was able to do this X, Y, and Z. I was able to think about these stuff. This is how I mitigate those security risks that I saw within my events. And like I said, like the certifications and build your portfolio of experience. I think this is one of the few fields that certification is almost as important as degree, I think. Some people might have a different opinion, but I do think that is similar, or it has that same importance. So it's an easier route to get in than maybe spending 3 years, 4 years for a PhD or a year for a master's.
There are as well, I put a link in the chat at 50 minutes past the hour on different projects that the UK government is funding to try and bring people in to cybersecurity. So some of those, because you know, boot camps, etc., were mentioned, might be worth looking around some of those. And then, yeah, I think it's less relevant for our audience, but for people who haven't yet taken a degree, the government does Cyber First bursaries and scholarships, which fund people through that period. So if you're at that stage and you're looking for a degree, then that's an option too.
Well, perfect. Thank you, Amy. I'm just conscious of time. We're hitting the hour now for 7 p.m. I want to thank everyone for coming. Thank you to our speakers. Thank you, Stephanie. Thank you, Amy. And thank you for everyone for coming. Unfortunately, we won't be able to take all the questions, but please do reach out to us, connect. I think I shared the website link to CISSP online. Is there any way best that they can contact yourself, Amy, maybe through Twitter or?
Yes, so you can see my name. I'll type it in here. I'm on Twitter and I'm on LinkedIn, and it's just my full name. So Amy Ertan. So yep, do send things through if you have questions.
Perfect. Again, thank you for everyone for joining. Is there anything else you wanted to add, Steph?
I was going to say thank you, Antonio, for being a great host and navigating the conversation. I appreciate it.
I also just wanted to add probably some more information about CISSP at the end as well. So for those of you who don't know, we are a career development platform. And this is our realm. We want to help everyone to, you know, reach their desired goals of moving into cybersecurity, and whether that be, you know, from entry level or whether you're looking to transition. You know, we do offer services such as career coaching, and this is something that you can access through our website, along with virtual internships, and a lot of other career development advice that you can seek from our website. So please do get in touch, CISSP.org. Please do go and do your research, and we'll be hosting more events. Please do stay connected through Twitter, through Instagram. We will be putting on a lot more events, and we look forward to seeing you again. So thank you again for joining. and we look forward to, staying in touch.
Yeah, sorry, I just wanted to put one thing before we go. We have a virtual internship program. That's application open right now. I put the link. I don't know why I missed my mind. It's the deadline is 31st of May, and that's with a Australian company called Moose Cyber Institute. It's a 6 months virtual internship, and then you have about 3 months of virtual mentorship with professionals in the field to kind of help you navigate into the career. We can only choose 12 women. So please do apply because applications end on the 31st of May. Yeah, it just skipped my mind.
Yeah, that's fine. It's there's a lot going on at Cydia, so please do check out our website. Lastly, I did forget to mention that we do have a jobs board on there. So even if you don't necessarily have the right skills or qualifications at the moment, you can go on there and see the kind of roles that might be desirable to yourself. And then you can get in contact with us for career coaching or just general advice about how you would potentially move into those sorts of roles. So thank you again for everyone for joining, and I hope you have a great evening.
Thank you. Bye.
Thank you, everyone. Take care. Bye.